very good evening to all of you. I am Raman Khatwala, chartered accountant, practicing primarily into GST. We are based in Delhi and Haryana. Today's deliberation has been divided into three parts. First will be critical issues in GST. Friends, like in last 2 years, last 3 years, because we'll be completing the third anniversary of GST on 1st of July. So in last 3 years, what I have seen, the issues which enterprise are facing difficulties or having there some doubts or lacking the clarity or not complying with the provisions. So I'm taking those issues. Secondly, I'll be taking up in a very small manner a financial package which was recently announced by the Honorable Finance Minister. And most importantly, your question and answers. We will be spending much more time on your question and answer, because what I have felt in last couple of months, people are still having a lot of doubts, lot of questions on GST. So better if we discuss and come to some conclusions on your queries. With this, I begin my deliberation, friends. I hope I'm laudable to everyone. I expect everybody is able to see the screen also. Okay, fine. Thank you, friends, for your words. Friends, the first and most important question is a director remuneration. Friends, post GST, this has been one of the most critical issues and unwarranted, we can say, issues cropped up by the department unnecessarily. Prior to GST, we were giving remunerations for directors. I'm just taking a background of this matter because this is an important issue, and today only I came to know that the department has started issuing the notices also to the body corporates who are giving directors remuneration. So we should give some time to this issue so that you all are able to understand the issue. Friends, if they are a private company or a limited company, we are giving remuneration to our directors. In companies, there are two types of directors. One is executive directors and another is non-executive directors. What are the difference between these two directors? The executive directors are those directors who are completely, wholly and whole time engaged with the company, like a normal employee of a company. So from morning to the evening, those executive directors are working for the company exclusively. But when we talk about non-executive directors, so in those cases, those people who are non-executive directors are not engaged in a day-to-day affair of the business of the company. They come once in a while for a board meeting or something like that in the company and engage themselves with the affairs of the company. They get some remuneration or a director meeting fees, and so they go on. Now we have to distinguish whether our directors are executive directors or non-executive directors. Now, when we go with the ruling, the first ruling on this issue was given by Karnataka GST Authority in the case of Alcon Constructions way back in September 2019. The second ruling came in the case of Claycraft India Private Limited by Rajasthan GST Authority. In these two rulings, the department has ruled that directors are not employee of the company. Hardly matters whether they are executive director or non-executive directors. The ruling said directors are not the employees of the company. So whatever remuneration you are giving to the directors, they are all coming under RCM method. Meaning thereby, you as a company who spend the remuneration to the directors are bound to pay reverse charge GST. You are allowed to take the input tax credit. But my question is, if this ruling stands before the court of law and the department starts levying GST on RCM basis, from the day GST was levied in India, that is from 1st of July 2017, then what will be the repercussion? It means all the body corporates have to pay GST on reverse charge basis on those director remuneration. But friend, there is a catch here. Even though we are allowed to take the ITC, input tax credit, but there is a time barring period. What is that? As per section 16, subsection 4 of the GST Act, any person who are registered into GST, they can claim the GST input tax credit within 6 months from the end of the financial year. For the financial year 17-18, this period was extended. Meaning thereby, if you are paying a director remuneration and the company asks and the GST authority asks you to pay the reverse charge of GST for the financial year 17-18, that's the first financial year for the GST, then you are paying GST also today. Today you will be paying interest also, and you will be paying penalty also. But for the financial year 17-18 and for the financial year 18-19, for these 2 financial years, you are not eligible to take the input tax credit today because that is time barred. You cannot avail the input tax credit now. So it will result in huge loss to the company. But a relief was given on 5th of April 2020 by another judgment of Karnataka GST Authority in the case of Anil Kumar Agarwal. In this judgment, the department held that directors who are executive directors are whole-time employee of the company, and so the remuneration given to those directors are not coming within the purview of GST. But friend, since within the department there is no cohesion, they are not on the same page with respect to director remuneration. So we cannot say how the thing will fold now in future. But this is the area where we expect, as a professional, we expect the department to come out with a clarification so that this issue is settled once for all. Second issue, input tax credit of central excise, VAT and service tax. Friend, we all know, like you as a service provider must be registered under service tax earlier, prior to the GST levy. And you must be filing your ST3 returns also under service tax regime. Many people who were registered under service tax had some input tax credit balance as on 30th of June 2017. That means just before the levy of GST, if you have any input tax credit balance which the department has allowed you to carry forward to GST regime by filing a form called GST Transfer Form. Every assessee who were registered in GST were supposed to file this form before 27th of December 2017. Those people who could not file Transfer Form within 27th January to 27th of December, they were not allowed to take the input tax credit of earlier regime of central excise, VAT or service tax. So you as a service provider, if you have any balance of service tax of earlier regime and you could not file Transfer Form within the stipulated date of 27th of December 2017, then you are time barred and you were not allowed to take the input tax credit now. This was also a huge loss to the business enterprise. Fortunately, by and large, throughout India, hundreds of cases were filed before the Honorable High Courts. And in maximum rulings and maximum cases, the High Court have ruled that the assessee is allowed to file Transfer Form again and should be allowed to take the input tax credit. But the department was still not opening the portal and was not allowing the people to file Transfer Form. Recently, in the case of Reliance Electric, Delhi High Court has given a very wonderful judgment. they have told two important things. First, normally the judgment, whenever delivered by a high court, is only applicable to the applicant and to the state where those high courts have the jurisdiction. For example, in the first case of Rajasthan High Court, the ruling was given, so those rulings were applicable to the state of Rajasthan only. Similarly, by the decision of Punjab Haryana High Court, those rulings were effective in the state of Haryana and Punjab. But the Delhi High Court has said in their ruling, in paragraph number 23, that this rule is applicable to all the assessees who could not file trans 1 form, and the department should advertise this judgment so that all the assessees should be able to avail the benefit of this judgment. Secondly, they have said the department has no authority to limit the assessee to file the form before 27th of December. They have said in the judgment that all the assessee who could not file the form trans 1 and could not avail the service tax benefit, they can now file and take the benefit till the period 30th June 2020. So friends, you still have 1.5 months in your hand. Whoever have not claimed any service tax benefit or a VAT benefit into the current regime can now claim the benefit. Secondly, if you have filed, because I have seen a lot of people who have filed service tax input tax credit or who have availed excise input tax credit, but the amount which they have availed, later on they found that that was less amount, meaning thereby you have filed trans 1, you have claimed the input tax credit of earlier regime into GST, but the amount claimed by you was of a lesser amount than the actual amount for which you are eligible. So now, because of Delhi High Court judgment, you can easily claim the leftover credit, the balance credit, which you could not claim earlier. Third, cross charge. Friends, believe me, this is one of the issue which by and large none are complying. By and large, none are complying. What is the meaning of this issue now? For example, you are having an office in Mumbai and another branch office, say in Hyderabad. So you have two different offices in two different states, one in Maharashtra and one in Telangana. And you are registered under GST in both the states, in Maharashtra also and in Telangana also. Now, for example, like you engage me as a chartered accountant. Mr. Raman, you conduct the audit of our both the branches and give us a report. I do the audit, prepare a report and give it to the management. But I raise the bill on the head office. Similarly, your head office does any promotional activities like advertisements, something like that. Thirdly, your head office in Mumbai is doing some licensing of work with the customer, with the department, with the government, with the banks. So all these activities which your head office is doing, sitting at Mumbai, the benefit of which is also being taken by your Telangana. How it can be? For example, if your Mumbai office is taking, licensing with your customer, with your client, who will be participating in an exhibition in Hyderabad, for example. And your Mumbai office says to the Hyderabad office that you organize everything for the client. Since you are already in Telangana, in Hyderabad, and the exhibition is being held in Hyderabad only, so better you only organize for the client. Because both the branches belong to the same entity. But GST authority, as per the GST law, Schedule 1, Clause B, it says that this is also a service, marketing service, given by your head office to the Telangana branch. And for this, the head office sitting in Mumbai is supposed to raise a tax invoice on the Telangana branch, has to charge GST and deposit the GST with the Maharashtra government. If you don't comply with this provision, And after a year or two, as we have, if many of us have seen in the service tax regime, that the department used to come to our places for the audit purpose. Similar provisions has been taken in the GST also. The department will be coming to your premises for audit purpose. During audit, if they come to know that you are having more than one registration in GST in two different states, and then they will raise a question of cross charge, whether there is any service which is common which the HO has rendered to the branches. If so, then whether the HO has raised the tax invoice, paid the GST or not. If not, then it tantamounts to concealment fraud, and you may be asked to pay GST, interest and penalty. So friends, please take note of this thing. If you are having multiple branches, whether you are complying with a cross charge mechanism or not. Next is input tax credit distribution. In short, we call it ISD. Now, how it can affect you? For example, in the same which we have taken just now of Telangana and Mumbai branch. Telangana branch asked the HO to get an insurance person for them. HO arranges an insurance person for doing some insurance activity for the Telangana branch. The insurance person conducts the survey, puts a proposal, branches agree to that and ask the insurance person to take the payment from the HO, because HO is a controlling authority and all the payments have been made by the HO only. But the benefit of the policy will be availed by the branch at Telangana. Now what will happen? The insurance service provider will be raising the bill on the HO at Mumbai, mentioning in the policy that the property or the assets situated at Telangana is insured. Okay? They will be levying GST also. Now, can Mumbai office take the input tax benefit for the GST charged by the insurance service provider on the insurance benefit taken by Telangana branch? No, friend. The Mumbai office cannot take the benefit. Why? Because the benefit of insurance, the request of insurance was availed by your Telangana branch. The property of Telangana is insured. The property of Mumbai has not been insured by this policy. So, the HO has to take a separate registration for ISD. You might be having registration in GST. Fine. But as a distributor of ISD to your own branch, you are supposed to take another registration in GST. And the insurance and the GST amount charged by the insurance service provider need to be transferred to your branch at Telangana. You cannot take the input tax credit ITC of those insurance policies for the property situated in Telangana, but the benefit is availed by Maharashtra. No, friend, it is not allowed. Similarly, there can be huge examples like security person. You have engaged in a security agency to guard your warehouse, to guard your offices, but you have asked the service agency, the security agency, to raise the bill completely on your HO. Because normally, HO is the controlling authority for the funds. And when the service provider, the security agency, will be raising the bill on HO, obviously GST will be charged on that bill, and inadvertently, the HO might take the input tax credit, which is again wrong. So friends, please take note of this, that you are availing the input tax credit only for those services which you have availed, which you have consumed. A very simple, but in generally a non-compliant thing. The GST Act says every person who are registered in GST have to comply with very two simple things. First, outside your warehouse, outside your office, where you are registered under GST, you have to display your GSTN number. What? Outside your office, outside the main entrance of your office, or warehouse, you need to display your GST registration number. Second, once the person enters your premises, then at the most prominent place, you need to display the registration certificate. But friend, 99% cases I have seen, the people are not complying. And to the bad luck, the GST department has authority to levy a penalty of up to rupees 50,000, for each non-compliance. Meaning thereby, if you have not complied with both the provisions of display the GST number outside your main gate and hanging of a certificate, then you may be asked by the department to pay the penalty up to rupees 1 lakh. Friend, please, I sincerely request all of you who have not complied with this small and very small provision, very easy provision, please display, please hang your certificate, GST certificate at your reception at the main entrance area, and please emboss the put up a plate with the GST number outside the main entrance of your office or warehouse. It will hardly cost you a few hundred rupees, but you'll be saved by a lakh rupees. Next is sale of goods post exhibition. Friends, you are all participating in you are all providing services in an exhibitions. Like, but once the exhibition ends, I have seen in your trade, it's very common that you dispose of many commodities at the exhibition stall itself. You call some scrap person and you sell all these stuffs which you don't want to bring back to your original place of business, and you dispose of all those stuffs at the warehouse, at the exhibition area only, at the exhibition state itself. For example, I'm registered in Delhi and I'm into the business of providing carpets. Okay, and one of my client who is participating in an exhibition to be held in Mumbai asked me to provide the carpets at Mumbai. I take 1,000 carpets in a truck to Mumbai, and post exhibition I find that out of 1,000 carpets, 2 carpets are completely destroyed. They are of no use now. So I decide there itself to sell those 2 carpets in Mumbai itself. I am not registered in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. But since I find that there is no use of bringing those 2 carpets to Delhi back, they are of no use, so better dispose of at Mumbai itself, at Maharashtra. Now, if you are doing this, then you are bound to take GST registration in Maharashtra, because you cannot sell anything in Maharashtra without taking GST registration number. So friend, please keep this in your mind, that whether you are selling any commodity, selling any stuff, leftover stuff, your scrap materials, you are participant, you might be fabricating some stall for your clients, and once the exhibition comes to an end, you might be selling those broken pieces, wooden pieces to the scrap person. So if you're indulging those activities, then you must ensure that you are registered in Maharashtra, in those states where you are selling those stuffs. You are not required to take a normal registration if it is one of the activity, not a regular activity in that state. Then you have a provision like the other participant in exhibition. You're also allowed to take the casual GST registration. That's a very simple process. You can apply for the registration, sell the stuffs, and can easily come back. Value to be filled in the e-way bill and challan when goods are sent for exhibition. This is a very common question which I am getting from your fraternity. Like, if a person is having office in Bangalore, and from Bangalore they are sending any material on a rent basis to exhibition to be held in, say, Mumbai. Now they ask me, Mr. Raman, what is the value that I should fill in the challan and e-way bill while sending my goods from Mumbai to Bangalore, from Bangalore to Mumbai, or back from Mumbai to Bangalore? Whether it should be the rent amount which I'm charging to my customer, or the value of the commodity which I'm sending. Friend, e-way bill and challan are required when you are sending any commodity, any goods. It has nothing to do with your rent amount. Nothing to do. You are generating e-way bill for sending a commodity. You are generating any challan for sending a commodity. So while filling challan, while generating e-way bill, you must see that the value which you are putting in these two documents should be the value of the commodity which you are sending, not the rent which you may be charging from your customer. Similarly, when you are bringing the goods back to your business premises after the exhibition, same rule must be followed. There are different followings among your fraternity. In few of the occasions in your seminars, I have taken up this issue, but still I am finding a gap in the compliance. So I request you to make sure that while filling the challan, while generating e-way bill, you are not putting anything other than the value of the commodity which you are sending. Friends, I request that don't, you can just park your question, hold your questions for right now. As I've already said, that once I complete my deliberations, we'll take up your questions. Job work return. Now, you might be saying that you are a service provider. Then how the job work is applicable to you? Friend, like for example, you are giving air conditioners on rent. And for any reason, two air conditioners gets broken down. You might send those AC to a job worker to get it repaired. Now, in this case, you are supposed to raise challan e-way bill for sending the AC from your place to the job worker place, and similarly while bringing the goods back. Also, you are required to file a return called ITC-04 on a quarterly basis. This return is applicable only and only in those cases where you are sending any goods on for a job work, not otherwise. Secondly, this return is applicable from the day GST was levied in India, that is from 1st of July 2017. But fortunately, the department has withdrawn this form till the period, till the quarter ended 31st of March 2019. But from the financial year 1920, 1st of April 19, this form was applicable. But maximum people thought that this form has been dispensed of completely, and maximum principal and maximum people who have sent their commodity on job work did not file the return. I request each and every one of you who is supposed to file the return for the financial year just ended, that is for the financial year 1920, please file your return, because this return has to be filed on a quarterly basis. So for first, second and third quarter, the time has already lapsed. You please file the return. You may take a plea whenever the department levies a penalty, because the department can levy a penalty up to rupees 50,000 for a per quarter basis. So if you have not filed any return, and if I'm presuming that you are supposed to file for every quarters, then we already have had 4 quarters for the financial year 1920. The return for the 4th quarter is yet to be can now be filed also without any penalty, because the last date has been extended because of COVID. But for the first 3 quarters of 1920, the time has already lapsed. So if the department levies penalty on you, then you can simply say that since the department has withdrawn the form earlier, so you were under genuine impression that this form is not applicable, so you didn't file. But once you came to know about this, now you have filed this form, ITC-04. So the penalty of such a huge amount should not be levied on you. But so friends, I'm again repeating, if you are required to file this form, please do so without any further delay now. Invoice under reverse charge and payment voucher. Now, what this is? Friends, first of all, I'm just touching a small background for this subject now. For taking the input tax credit under GST, there are few conditions levied in section 16 of CGST Act. Section 16 subsection 2 says that you can avail the input tax credit of GST only and only if you are having tax invoice. If the person who wants to avail the input tax credit does not have the tax invoice, then that person is debarred from claiming the input tax credit. Now, why I am explaining you these things? We all know GST has a reverse charge mechanism. For example, you are hiring any transport agency for sending your goods from say Delhi to Mumbai. That transport agency is charging you X amount. Under GST, you are supposed to pay GST on reverse charge mechanism on the transport charges paid by you. For example, I have hired Jaipur Golden. Jaipur Golden is not registered under GST, and they have charged me rupees 10,000 for taking my goods from Delhi to Mumbai. I paid 10,000 rupees to Jaipur Golden Transport Company. On this 10,000 rupees, I am supposed to pay 500 rupees at the rate of 5%. Reverse charge on transport agency is 5%. So I am supposed to pay 500 rupees on this charge. In general, people are complying with this provision. People are paying the reverse charge to the department and are also eligible to take the input tax credit. Fine. I have no issue with this. But what you are not complying is invoice under reverse charge mechanism. Since Jaipur Golden Transport Company is not registered, when it's just an example, they might be registered. So don't take it otherwise. I'm just taking an example. If Jaipur Golden Transport Company is not registered under GST and you are paying reverse charge, then under GST section 31, you are supposed to raise reverse charge invoice. Only and after that, you are eligible to take the input tax credit. Now, you can link the section 16 and section 31. Section 16 allows you to take the input tax credit once you have tax invoice. Section 31 asks you to generate tax invoice if you are paying tax on reverse charge basis to those persons who are not registered under GST. So once you comply with section 31, then only you are eligible to take ITC in section 16. Now, say while bringing the goods back from Mumbai to Delhi after the exhibition, I again hired another transport agency, say ABC Transport Company. This transport company might be registered under GST. They have again charged me, say rupees 8,000 for carrying the goods from Mumbai to Delhi. Since ABC Transport Company is registered under GST, they are compulsory required under section 31 to raise a tax invoice on me. ABC Transport Company, who is registered under GST, is compulsory required to raise a tax invoice on me for 8,000 rupees. In the tax invoice, they will be mentioning the tax amount also. If they are charging 5% GST, then the total bill amount will be 8,000. Their freight charges and 5% is 400 rupees, the GST amount. The total amount will be 8,400. Now, friend, I have generally seen that people are paying 8,400 completely to ABC Transport Company. What they are saying, Mr. Raman, since they have charged GST on their bill, I have paid them. What is my fault? No, friend. Even though ABC Transport Company is registered under GST, They are issuing tax invoice to you. They are charging GST on their invoice, but you are supposed to pay 400 rupees directly to the department under reverse charge mechanism. You are not supposed to pay 400 to ABC Transport Company. And in this case, in case of Jaipur Golden, I have asked you to raise the tax invoice. But in this case, since ABC Transport Company is already registered into GST, so they are raising tax invoice on you, so you are not required to raise tax invoice. So you have to differentiate now whether the person from whom you are availing the services are registered under GST or not. If they are not registered, then only if you are paying reverse charge tax, then you are raising tax invoice. Now, second question, payment voucher. Friend, whenever you are paying GST on a reverse charge basis, it hardly matters whether the service provider is registered in GST or not. Like in my example, I have taken Jaipur Golden as an unregistered entity, ABC as a registered entity. But in both these cases, you as a service recipient of transport services are required to generate payment voucher while making payment to transport agencies. And friend, whenever you are raising reverse charge invoice or are raising payment voucher, you are supposed to give the details of these documents in your GSTR1 return also. Okay. Now, another question. Advance receipt voucher and refund voucher. Friend, we all know that advance receipt is not, GST is not applicable on advance for supply of goods. But you, as a service provider, like me as a service provider, I'm chartered accountant. If I get any advance from a client, then I'm supposed to pay GST on the advance receipt. For example, one of your client comes to you. You are registered in the state of Uttar Pradesh, Noida, and the client asks you to help him to participate in an exhibition being held in Greater Noida. You finalize the fees of the charges, and out of the total amount, you ask your client to pay advance of rupees 1 lakh. So in the month of May 2020, your client gives you advance of rupees 1 lakh, but the exhibition will be held in the month of November. So, meaning thereby, you'll be raising an invoice on your customer in the month of November or December, not before that. But when you have received 1 lakh rupees in advance from your customer in the month of May 2020, then you are compulsory required to pay GST on rupees 1 lakh while filing your return for the month of May 2020. Secondly, you are also required to raise advance receipt voucher for the advance of rupees 1 lakh received by you. And this advance receipt voucher must be disclosed in your GSTR1 return. Sorry to say, friends, I have not seen a single person in your fraternity who are complying. Maybe some are complying, but that has not come to my knowledge. But with whomever I have interacted in the last 2 years, I have interacted more than hundreds of people from your fraternity, from your association itself, throughout India. But I have not seen a single person complying with this provision of paying, of generating the receipt voucher. You are paying maximum of paying GST on advance receipt basis, but people are not generating advance receipt voucher or are not disclosing the voucher details in your GSTR1. So friends, please, I'll request you to follow this. Similarly, now we change the scenario. In the month of July 2020, that customer again comes back to me that Mr. Raman, I won't be participating in the exhibition, so you return my advance now. As per our agreed terms and conditions, I return him 50% advance and 50% is forfeited. So whenever I'm returning the advance back to the customer, then I'm supposed to generate refund voucher. And again, the details of this refund voucher is supposed to be shown in my GSTR1 return. Debit note and credit note. This is a very common document used by you. For example, you have raised any tax invoice on your customer and it has some error now. So you are issuing a debit note or credit note. Similarly, you are availing some services from your vendors and there are some errors in the invoice raised by your vendor. Again, debit note, credit note is being raised. Friend, please listen carefully. Under GST, debit note and credit note, these two documents can only be raised by the supplier, not by the recipient. Meaning thereby, if your vendor has given you any service or if your vendor has supplied you any goods and has raised invoice on you, but that invoice has some error, then only that vendor can raise a debit note or a credit note, as the case may be, under section 34 of CGST Act. The debit note or credit note in your general business parlance, which we call commercial debit note or credit note, or a financial debit note or credit note, can be raised by anyone, by the supplier, by the recipient, hardly matters. But what I'm talking about is the debit note or a credit note under GST. GST debit note or credit note prescribed by section 34 can only and only be raised by the supplier, not by the recipient. So please take note of this, that whether you are complying with this provision or not. Restriction on ITC. This is again a huge and a debatable issue, friends. Few things I will now take up for your benefit. For example, a person who is into exhibition business is registered in Noida in the state of Uttar Pradesh. For any business reason, for any business work, that person goes to, say, Mumbai, stays in a hotel for a business purpose only, for, say, Taj Hotel. And while checking out, that person gives the complete details of his firm name, address, GST number of UP, everything to the Taj Hotel person. The Taj Hotel will raise a bill on that person, giving complete details of UP, address, GST number, everything. But the person registered in UP, even though is having tax invoice of Taj Hotel, cannot take the input tax credit for the GST charged by Taj Hotel. Why? Because Taj Hotel is registered in Maharashtra and you are registered in Uttar Pradesh, not in Maharashtra. So in this case, you are debarred in availing the input tax credit charged by Taj Hotel. Friend, I will again repeat, the GST charged by Taj Hotel will be appearing in your GSTR 2A. You are having tax invoice. All the conditions have been fulfilled for section 16, but still you are debarred from claiming the input tax credit. There is a legal issue. I won't divulge much on this now because it will take huge time. But just for your benefit, knowledge purpose, friends, please ensure. I'll admit that this is a debatable and very issue which is on which there is no single view among all the people. But still, to be on a safer side, I'll sincerely advise that it's better that you are not availing any input tax credit for hotels, for those hotels in the states where you are not registered under GST. Payment within 180 days. Friend, there is a provision in section 16, subsection 3 of CGST Act. It says that whenever you are availing any, whenever you are purchasing any goods or getting any service from your vendor, then you are required to pay to that vendor within 180 days from the date of invoice of the vendor. Please note, It is 180 days, not 6 months. Friends, there's a difference between 6 months and 180 days. Generally, हमें लगेगा कि नहीं तो बराबर ही चीजें हैं. There's no difference between 6 months and 180 days. But while you calculate actually, then there's a difference between 180 days and 6 months. So you make sure that you are paying within 180 days first. Second, this has to be calculated from the date of invoice raised by the vendor, not when you have received the goods or services, not when you have entered the invoice into your account books of accounts. For example, one of my vendor has raised a bill on 20th of April 2020, but because of lockdown, my accountant was not available. So now today on 19th of May, my accountant has entered in my books of accounts. It's okay that you are entering today, but your meter for 180 days will start from 28th of April, not from 19th of May. Okay? Place of supply. Friends, in your business, in your exhibition service area, this term has a huge importance. I'm just taking few examples now. Now, what is the importance of place of supply first of all? Friend, you might be knowing that GST is a consumption-based tax, meaning thereby the state where the goods or services are consumed, that state will get the revenue. So if you are registered in Mumbai and your customer for whom you are rendering any services are registered in Karnataka, Bangalore, then when you are raising an invoice from Mumbai to Bangalore, and after you file the return, the Maharashtra government will transfer the tax from Maharashtra to Karnataka, because the services have been availed by the person who is registered in Karnataka. So place of supply determines which state will get the revenue. So if you, while raising the invoice or paying the tax, wrongfully classifies the place of supply, then the state who was eligible to take the input tax credit did not get the revenue. The revenue was transferred to some other state. So that state which has been deprived of the revenue might ask you to pay the tax again, because it is your fault. And friend, Rule 41, which gives the details for the components to be mentioned in the invoice. We have a circular issued in way back in March 2018 by the GST department. They have said that in case of supply between two different states, place of supply has to be mentioned. There are many invoices where we might be forgetting to mention the place of supply while raising a bill from one state to another state. But you are compulsory required under the circular, under the rule, under the act to mention the place of supply. These are the brief background of place of supply. Now I just come to my 2-3 issues on place of supply. Indian GST registered company participating in an exhibition in India or abroad. This is again an issue of place of supply. If your client, customer for whom you are rendering services are registered into GST and they're participating in an exhibition held in India or held outside India, then these two has a different place of supply significance. Similarly, Indian unregistered company participating in an exhibition, whether held in India or abroad. In my first example, your client was registered entity. In the second example, your client is an unregistered entity. So in both the cases, the place of supply changes. When the place of supply will change, so the tax to the state will also change. So you have to ensure whether you are following the process or not. Foreign company participating in an exhibition in India or participating in an exhibition held outside India, but you are providing the services outside India for that company. Again, there is a place of supply issue. So, friend, these three are the examples very prominent in your business. So, make sure that you are complying with the provisions of place of supply and not paying any tax to any state which are not eligible to receive the tax. One second, friends. I have a power supply issue. Sorry. Yeah, it's okay now. Now, transfer of goods within the same registration number. With my example is for manufacturer, but in your case also, like if you are registered in the state of Maharashtra, having offices in Mumbai or in Nagpur also, you are having two offices in the state of Maharashtra, Mumbai and Nagpur. Both the offices are having same GST registration number. Now, for example, from the office of Mumbai, you are shifting any goods, say computer, from your Mumbai office to your Nagpur office. Then what document will you be raising? Will you be raising a tax invoice? No, friends. Since both these two branches are registered under same GST registration number, so while transferring any goods between these two branches, you are not supposed to raise any tax invoice. You will be raising delivery challan and e-way bill. These two documents will be raised by you. E-way bill will be raised only if required under the State Act, because every state has a different minimum threshold limit for raising e-way bill. So you just go through that, whether you are required to raise the e-way bill or not. And delivery challan is a must to be raised. And friend, mind it that delivery challan has a format. Under Rule 55 of CGST rules, they have given a specific format. The contents which you are required to comply with. So make sure that while raising challans on any occasions, you are complying with the Rule 55 provisions also. With this, my deliberation for GST critical issues ends now. Now, this is the only last slide before I take up your questions. I am seeing that there are a lot of questions parked on the chat. Just wait for 5 minutes. We'll close this financial package issue. Then we'll come to your question answer sessions. The finance minister, the honorable finance minister, Ms. Sitharaman, has come out with a financial package for MSME industries. Friends, note that the package is applicable only and only for MSME. If you are not registered under MSME, then you are not qualifying for this package. They've already changed the definition of MSME. Earlier, the threshold limit was a lesser amount. Now, the threshold limit for MSME has been increased to turnover of rupees 100 CR in a year. So those service providers in your area of business who are having the aggregate annual turnover of up to rupees 100 CR per year are eligible to avail the benefit of MSME. Now, this first provision which the Honorable Finance Minister has declared was financial assistance of rupees 3 lakh crores to the MSMEs, because by and large, because of COVID, people are drained up with their revenue now, with their funds now, but they have huge liability, salary, electricity, rent, interest to be paid off, and they are facing huge fund shortage. To help those business enterprise, the government has declared that without any security, without any property mortgage, without any guarantee, the banks will be assisting, lending the money. It's not like you just keep the money and enjoy. No, it is a loan to you. You are supposed to return back the money to the bank, obviously. But you are eligible to take the loan now without any property, without any guarantee. First of all. Secondly, in the financial package of rupees 3 lakh crores, the Honorable Finance Minister has declared that on the first year you will not be required to pay interest. Only the principal amount has to be repaid. Sorry, is otherwise. Only the interest has to be paid on the first year. The principal need not be paid in the first year. From second year onwards till fourth year, you are required to pay the complete interest and principal amount. Second package is an EPF contribution. Friend, this was announced in the month of March, end of March itself, when the lockdown was declared. Under this package, if you are registered, if you have taken a PF number, Provident Fund number also for your employees, and your total employee strength is less than 100, there are two conditions. First is the total employee strength is less than 100. Second, the out of total employees which you are having, 90% of the employees, 90% of your employees must be getting salary of less than 15,000 rupees. Then the PF contribution for employer and employee, which is 12% each. In totality, it is 24%. This 24% will be paid by the government of India on your behalf, and you are not required to pay this 12% back to the government. So this is real a gain for you. This scheme was initially for 3 months, for March, April, and May. Now it has been extended to September, June, July, no, April, May, and June. Earlier it was for April, May, and June. Now it has been extended for three more months now, till September, as far as I recall. So this is really a good benefit for you. Fund of fund, again a very new concept. This was not applicable earlier in the MSME sectors. For corporates, yes, it was applicable. It was available. Under this scheme, the bank will be participating. The bank will be participating in your company as an equity shareholder. It won't be a loan. It will be an equity shareholder participation between bank and you. So, in a nutshell, the bank will become a part of your organization, a part of your board, and they can really help you in getting funds also and managing the company also. Similarly, a lot of MSME gone bad because of unintentional bad business environment, and their loan also became bad. They could not repay the loan, and those loans were technically qualified as called as NPA, non-performing assets, by the banks. It is a legal term, NPA. Now, the Honorable Finance Minister has said that we'll be funding 20,000 crore rupees to those units which are qualified as an NPA, just to bring them back on the track. So, these were the four for fund part, and the last is reduction in tax TDS rate. You as a business enterprise might be deducting TDS for your vendors, or when you are raising invoice on your customers, then your customers also deducting TDS on the payment being made to you. The Honorable Finance Minister has said that with effect from last week itself, the TDS rate is being reduced by 25%. Meaning thereby, say if the TDS rate is 10%, so now it will be 7.5%. Many people are saying that there is no relief in this, because TDS is ultimately, we are ultimately bound to pay the tax later on. If we are deducting the TDS today, then we will be paying the TDS, more tax later on. Friends, I differ. Humbly, I differ from this view. Why? Because what I perceive in this current financial year of 2021, because of COVID, there will be a huge impact on the profit of an organization. So, if the organization is not having good profit or are into losses, then obviously they are not going to pay good taxes or tax at all. Then in those cases, if the TDS amount gets down, then you are having more funds in your hand to meet your financial obligations. So with these are a few financial packages which I thought I should bring before you. And with this, I end my deliberations. Now we can take up your question answers.
Ramaji, it's me, Nimit Soni. I have a question. Can we start now?
Please, sir.
I have a question for you. For example, just hear me carefully. So, for example, we raised an invoice to some company last year in Jan 2019.
Mhm.
Okay, and then okay, so you can say that, for example, that invoice was for about 3 CR plus taxes, and we got some part payment on that invoice, right?
Okay.
And then financial year got ended on 31st March 2019,
Mhm.
right? And apparently by July, August, September, that company got bankrupt.
Okay.
So of course, all those proceedings are in place. So my question to you is that, is there any way that we can take
No, sir.
input of that GST amount back in our
No, sir.
books?
No, sir. Since the service was rendered, Nitinji,
Yeah.
since the service was rendered, your money gone bad. It is only that your money gone bad, but service was completely rendered by you.
About close to about 70 lakhs is a GST amount, and
that is a huge financial impact on you. But legally, under the GST provisions, you are not having you're not getting any relief from the department.
no, but we
yes,
haven't got.
This matter is under consideration before the department right now. That under the COVID, they might come up with a scheme for giving some relief. But as on date, there is no such provisions which gives you any relief from GST.
So, if our clients, they don't pay, we cannot take input back in our books.
No, sir.
After 180
No,
days.
sir. No, sir.
Okay.
This provision was never there earlier also, except for small service providers in service tax regime also. The provision was like, if you are a service provider, you are bound to pay tax, irrespective whether you are getting the money from your customer or not.
Yeah, but that's sad, no?
Very sad, but the law stands in this way only.
Okay. Thank you. So let me start.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I have one small doubt, sir.
Please.
We are doing higher service charges for the materials.
Please identify yourself.
Sir, my name is Kumaran, calling from Dr. Giri Furniture, Chennai.
Okay.
Sir, we are dealing with higher charges.
You're dealing with?
While we are moving the material, we are dealing with higher charges.
Okay.
Higher charges.
Fine.
Okay. While moving the material, we need a EWA bill, sir.
Whenever you are moving any material,
okay.
Whenever you are moving any material, because Rule 138 says that an EWA bill is required to be generated on movement of goods. It doesn't matter the purpose of movement. What matter is movement of goods. Whenever you are moving any good for any purpose, from your one office to another office, for your job purpose, for your repairing purpose, for your exhibition purpose, for display purpose, hardly matters. But you are supposed to raise the EWA bill.
Okay. Okay. Sir, and one more thing.
Yeah.
Sir, we are in Chennai.
Yeah.
So one of our client is requesting, do you one service in Chennai? They are conducting one program. We are raising the bill, but they are not registered Chennai. They are in Bangalore based.
So your voice is not very clear to me.
Hello?
Please repeat again.
Sir, we are in Chennai.
Okay.
One of our client is basically they are in Bangalore.
Okay.
They are conducting one program in Chennai. They are asking to raise a bill. We have to raise a bill in IGST or CGST, sir?
If that person is registered under the GST,
yes, sir,
in Chennai itself, then you will be raising.
No. They are not registered in Chennai. They are registered only in Bangalore only, the Karnataka especially.
They are registered in Karnataka.
Chennai. Yes, sir.
So you will be raising an IGST bill.
But the service is rendered only.
The services have been rendered where? Hello.
Chennai. They are conducting the program in Chennai.
Hardly matters because
Chennai.
Section 12 of IGST. Section 12 of IGST says that if the person to whom you have rendered the service is registered under GST, then his place of business will be the place of supply. So You are registered in GST in Chennai, and your customer
Yes,
is
sir.
registered in Bangalore, Karnataka. So you'll
Yes,
be
sir.
raising a bill from Chennai to Karnataka with IGST.
Okay, but the service centered in Chennai, but we have to
Yes.
raise the invoice only for IGST.
With IGST.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Next,
thank you.
we'll go by the questions which are raised in chat. The first question was from Avinash Sinha. Are you there, Mr. Sinha? Can you unmute yourself, Mr. Sinha?
Hello, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hello.
Can you raise your question?
Hello.
I
Yeah,
read
Avinash.
it from you. The Avinash Sinha says that sales of goods during the exhibition, but generally in Challan exhibitors have mentioned that these goods are not for sale. It's for display only. Sir, you said sales of goods during exhibition, but generally in Challan exhibitors have mentioned that these goods are not for sale. It is for display only.
So what I have mentioned that after exhibition, like in my example, I have said that if you have fabricated a stall for any of a customer, client, and post exhibition, few of the item gets damaged, and you just dispose of those damaged item in the exhibition stall itself to some scrap person. Supposing that you are not registered in the state where the exhibition was held, and you are selling any scrap material, then you are compulsory required to be registered in the state before selling those commodities. Am I clear now, Mr. Avinash?
Mr. Avinash, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, it's clear. So I just want to know one more thing.
Yes.
Generally, during exhibitions, the sponsors have paid the sponsorship fees with taxes, inclusive of taxes. So how the reverse charge mechanism work in that case for the recipient?
You have to calculate on a reverse mechanism. Like for example, if you are receiving rupees 1 lakh from the as a sponsorship fees, then and if it includes including the GST, then you have to calculate on reverse charge method. That this 1 lakh rupees includes GST amount. So they have a formula. The amount received by you divided by 118. This will give you the tax amount.
Sure. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Hemant Bayana. If we register in Delhi and we are working for a client which is Mumbai based in Mumbai only, or we work for him in for the Mumbai based client in Chandigarh. So what is the process to charge and get reverse GST?
If you are registered in Delhi and you are working for a client Mumbai based in Mumbai itself, means you are saying that you are registered in GST in Delhi.
Right.
Please, Hemant sir, please can you just repeat? I cannot follow you.
I'm registered in Delhi in GST, and I have a client in Mumbai. If I worked for him in Mumbai and also worked in Chandigarh, for the exhibition purpose, so what is the process to charge GST and the reverse?
Like Hemantji, when you are registered in Delhi and your customer is registered in Mumbai, but the exhibition is being held in Mumbai, Maharashtra, and Chandigarh. Okay.
Right.
So there is a provision, section 12 of IGST Act. It says that the place where your customer are registered will be the place of supply.
Okay.
So in this case, you'll be raising an invoice from Mumbai, from Delhi to Mumbai.
To Mumbai. Okay.
With IGST.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Pankaj Rajput, can you unmute yourself? His question is, if I stay in a hotel in the same state, can I claim the GST input?
Yes.
Yeah.
If, for example, if you're registered in Maharashtra, Mumbai, and you are going to Nagpur and staying in a hotel in Nagpur and you're giving your GST number, I am presuming that you are going to Nagpur for business purpose. Then in this case, you are eligible to take the input tax credit.
Mr. Mukesh Mistry, can you unmute yourself? The question is, which GST should be charged to registered customer supplied in other state? Which GST should be charged to unregistered customer supplied in other state?
Like, friend, as I've already mentioned in case of Mr. Hemant, Like if you're supplying any service to a customer who is registered under GST for exhibition purposes, your service is towards exhibition purpose. Okay. So in this case, the place where your client is registered will be the place of supply. Now, for example, you are registered in Delhi and your customer client is registered in, say, in Bangalore. Exhibition is held, say, in Mumbai. So there are 3 states now. You are in Delhi, your customer is in Karnataka, exhibition is being held in Mumbai, Maharashtra. But since your customer is registered in Karnataka, so your place of supply will be Karnataka, Bangalore, and you'll be charging IGST. Now, I take another example. Like you are in Delhi, your customer is in Maharashtra, so is in Bangalore, but he is not registered in Bangalore, in Karnataka. He is an unregistered entity, and the exhibition is held in Mumbai, in Maharashtra. Then the place of supply will be Maharashtra, not Mumbai, not Bangalore. So the situation changes whether your customer are registered or unregistered. Accordingly, you have to take a decision.
Okay, thank you.
Pankaj Rajput. Pankaj Rajput. What if I register under MSME in May 2020? Am I still eligible for MSME benefits?
I have a doubt because there is no clarity as such. But what I have heard, because I haven't seen anything, documents coming out with the ministry till yet. But what I have heard from the people who are engaged in MSME activities, as per them, the persons who have registered as an MSME prior to the announcement are only eligible. But Pankajji, I cannot tell you right now on a very concrete note. You can just take my number, and whenever within the next few days we're having a clarity from the department, from the ministry, then I'll be able to clarify you also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pankaj Rajput is asking, what is the criteria for eligibility to avail? You have already answered just now. Maninder Man, sir, suppose if we have a company in 2 states with 2 GST numbers of the particular state. If A company needs to send material for support of B from state A to state B, then the company need to raise the invoice or not? Or can send only e-way bill as internal movement of material?
Maninderji, like I have already said in my deliberation for cross charge, this is also example of cross charge only. I have given the example of services. Now you are taking up the case of goods. What I have understood from your question, you are saying that you are having 2 GST registration and you are saying you are supposed to raise tax invoice from state A to state B and e-way bill if you are crossing the threshold limit of rupees 50,000, because it has said then the threshold limit for raising e-way bill is rupees 50,000. So whenever if you are crossing this limit, you are supposed to raise e-way bill also, and tax invoice is compulsory without any threshold limit.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Raman?
Please.
I am Sanjay Anand from Merofoam India. Okay, it is not relating to GST, but it's relating to MSME, which you had just spoken about.
Please.
We are registered under MSME as a medium entity, but now they have raised the, although they have raised the investment limit to 25 CR, I believe.
Yes.
But they have put a clause of turnover.
Yes.
Which is 100 CR. So it is and or it is or.
Either or. Either or.
No, but as per the, I sure because as per that it says and.
Sir, it was only on a presentation. But if you see the Amendment Act,
okay,
it's either or.
Either or. So we continue to remain as an MSME because otherwise we go out of it.
Yes, you will continue to remain that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Vipul Jaiswal, are you there?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, my question is, What if the goods are provided in the same state but invoicing is done to other states? E-way bill required.
What if the goods are provided in the same state, but invoicing is done to some other state? Why? When you are supplying the goods within the same state, then why are you raising the invoice to some other state? Can you just explain?
Just my wife basically she takes care of this thing. She'll explain.
Please.
Hi sir, this is Anubha.
A
Actually,
bit louder.
hello.
Yes.
This is Anubha here, Anubha Jaiswal.
ma'am.
Actually, the point is, company provides goods to some of their dealers as a gift or some kind of thing, say servicing or some kind of product servicing. And the invoicing we need to do to company directly, which is say in Mumbai, Maharashtra, and we here in MP. So we provide the goods here in the same, like in Jabalpur, and we are here in Indore. And invoicing is done at Maharashtra. So, what e-way bill is required, or like delivery challan?
What I understood that you are supplying goods to Mr. A, but you are raising invoice on Mr. B.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? Yes. That is a classic case of bill to ship to. Section 10 of IGST Act already has a provision that you can easily raise the bill on a bill to ship to basis, meaning thereby that the company for whom you are rendering services, you are raising the bill on that company, but you are shipping the goods to some other person.
Yes, sir.
But e-way bill is compulsory. Ma'am, e-way bill has nothing to do with any other thing except that there should be movement of goods and you are crossing the threshold limit. For e-way bill, these are the only two criteria: whether there is a movement of goods or not, first, whether you are crossing the threshold limit or not. If your goods value is above the minimum limit prescribed in the Act, then you are supposed to raise the e-way bill.
So, but if goods are not moving and we are just providing it at the same place, like delivering, if the customer is coming at our place.
Movement means the goods are being taken out from your premises and it is going to some another premises.
No, if customer comes up to us property and take off the single kind of object, then what happens in that
Ma'am,
case?
like in that case, no. When for example, if you're going to a showroom, madam, just give an example. If you're going to a showroom and buying a television, and you are saying to the showroom that I'll take this television along with me. Okay. So now the movement is being caused by you. As a buyer, you are causing the movement. The showroom person is not causing the movement. They have delivered the goods at their counter and you have taken the goods along with you in your car. If the television value exceeds the threshold limit of e-way bill, then you are required to generate e-way bill. I hope I'm able to clear your doubt now. It doesn't matter whether you are registered or unregistered, whether you are purchasing, you are supplying. The only criteria is movement of goods. In your case, if the customer is causing the movement, you are giving the goods to your customer in your shop itself, in your office itself, in your warehouse itself. And the customer is causing the movement, is arranging the transport, everything. And the customer is required to generate the e-way bill. But you, as a supplier of goods, should mention on the invoice that you have delivered the goods at your warehouse, shop, or godown or office.
So this can be done with the delivery challan also, right?
Ma'am, delivery challan is applicable only when there is no supply.
There is no supply. Okay.
What is supply, what is not supply is already there in the Act. We not deliver today. But if you ask me, I will take up in the next day after tomorrow. But if the goods are supplied as per section 7 of GST Act, then you cannot raise challan. You have to raise tax invoice.
Can I?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Can I?
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sukhvinder-ji, can you answer the question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Raman-ji, I have a question. Like, I am giving services to somebody in foreign country, and that client is registered in, say, Mumbai, and I am registered in Delhi.
You are registered in Delhi, customer is registered in Mumbai, okay?
Yeah, and the services are being provided in, say, in foreign country, in Dubai or wherever.
Okay.
So how do we bill them? Number one.
I've already explained that whenever your client is registered into GST
Yeah.
and you are giving exhibition services, then the only criteria you have to see that whether my client is registered or not in India. If the client is registered in India, then his place of business will be place of supply. So in
And
your case, if you are in Delhi and your client is registered in Mumbai, then it is an IGST transaction with the place of supply as Maharashtra.
And in case
Hardly matters where the exhibition is being held, whether in India or outside India.
okay, and in case he is not registered, then again I use CGST.
If the client is not registered
Yeah.
and the exhibition is held outside India,
Yes.
then you have to see whether you are having the address of your client or not. If you are having the address of your client, then that address will have a place of supply.
Okay, not my address will not be the criteria.
If you are not having the address at all, then your address will be the place of supply.
Okay, but if we have the address and he is not registered, then it will be his address.
His address.
Yeah, that state will be benefited out of.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Raman.
We have Yashika Sethi. Yashika,
Yes.
are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir, I want to ask, like, there are a lot of clients who claim that they will, pay the GST once I, as a supplier, pay my GST, and, once they can see the input. But after that, once we pay the GST, they don't pay us the GST. So what can we do about it?
Ma'am, legally, what I have said, like if they are not paying you within 180 days, the tax amount, then they are not eligible to take the input tax credit. As a service provider, you cannot get the benefit. But what you can do, if you want, then you can make a complaint to that your customer's GST authority that your customer has not paid that tax. So that department can disallow the input tax credit. That is the only thing you can do. But legally, there is no mechanism in GST that to recover the money.
Yes, next, sir. Tarunji, Nimitji, Dipali have all said that it's an excellent presentation.
Thank you, Tarunji. Thank you. Thank you, friends.
I
A lot
thought
of
I
thank
should
you
mention
for
this.
your encouragements.
Yeah, and they also requested if a copy can be spared.
Yes, I'll give you. Send it to Anita, ma'am. You can circulate.
Okay. Then the question is, I have registered in advance. James Anand, you are there? James, I have raised an advance receipt of 1 lakh to a non-GST individual. For example, a wedding in the month of March. Wedding gets cancelled in the month of June. I need to refund him fully. How does the GST adjustment and reverse mechanism?
Very simple. Mr. James, it's very simple. Whenever you are receiving any advance, I have already deliberated that you are supposed to raise advance receipt voucher, pay GST. Whenever you are refunding the money, you are supposed to raise a refund voucher, and when filing your return, you can like whenever you are refunding the money, you are raising a refund voucher, and once you are raising a refund voucher, then you are reducing your liability of tax for that month also. Is it clear, Mr. James?
James is mute, I think.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Fine, thank you.
Mr. Saigal साहब, आप हैं? So Saigal's question is, we are registered in Delhi to provide a service to a Japanese company for organizing an exhibition for an Indian organization in Japan. The Japanese company will pay for our services. So how about GST in this case? Is it applicable or not in this case?
Mr. Saigal, what I understood that you are registered in Delhi, but your client is in Japan, and the Japanese company will pay for a service. They are paying for the services also. Then in this case, what I presume, there are 4 conditions. Service. There are 5 conditions. That you should be in India, your client should be in India, receiving the money in foreign exchange, and you two are not related parties. There are some technical matters which I have told. But I perceive from your story that you are in India, you are outside India, you are the foreign exchange and it is head in Japan. In all the countries, so not there is a provision in GST that you can raise the invoice without GST against LUT, letter of undertaking, LUT, because you are doing export of service. So since you are an exporter, so you have two choices. One, you can either pay IGST or you GST. If you are paying IGST, then you can claim the refund back from the government. Choice is yours.
Tarunji has one more question. For how long one can keep material in other state after a e-way bill and waiting for another show to happen in few weeks or months?
Sir, no time limitation. Month, year, choice is yours. But the problem is, Mr. Tarun, problem is, for example, you are registered in Delhi. You have participated in some exhibitions held in Mumbai. Now, you are expecting that there will be another exhibition after 2 months. So you have taken a warehouse in Mumbai and kept your goods there. Now you are supposed to take GST registration in Mumbai then, because now you are having an office or a warehouse in Mumbai. So that will be a problem for you. Till that time, you are not having any office or warehouse or go down in Mumbai or in Maharashtra. You are not taking any registration. But once you are keeping your material stuff in some state without taking GST registration, then it has an issue.
Thank you, sir. There are last two questions. Rakesh Yadav, I have registered in SEZ unit in Noida and also supply to Noida. Which tax is applicable? IGST?
Sir, if you are registered in SEZ and whether you are supplying in SEZ or supplying outside SEZ, if it is within SEZ, then it is an export. Because SEZ is considered outside India. It is a zero data supply. So since you are into SEZ, you are supplying into SEZ, then it is a export of service or goods. But if you are in SEZ and supply to non-SEZ area, then it is import for the person to whom you are supplying. Accordingly, the GST will be charged. But in both the cases, it is IGST.
Last question. If we are not registered under MSME, but we have to avail benefits of MSME, can we register?
Chetan sir, already I have explained earlier that since the department is yet to clarify the thing, some people are saying that yes, if you are registered under MSME earlier, then only you are qualified. But there is no complete clarification. We should wait till the department clarifies. Friends, I have a small offer for ISA people, because Anita ma'am and ISA is really very close to my heart, and you are very dear to me now. So I give an offer, because think the queries which I am getting right now from ISA people, I give an offer to all the ISA members, whether they are in webinar this time or not, to all the ISA members, wherever they are located in India, I'll get their GST records checked, audited for the 4th quarter, January to March 2020, without charging any fees from you. Because what I am seeing that you are having a lot of queries, you might not be complying with the law. So for 1 quarter, I just check your records, check your returns, and see whether you are complying with the law or not, without charging anything from you. Whoever wants just can contact me or Anita ma'am and can just avail the services.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your kind.
Thank you. Thank you,
And with this, we sign off. Thank you, friends, all for being here. And
we have one more session with the CA sir on Thursday, Raman sir. So that we also have to announce.
Yes, we have another session day after tomorrow, and we request all to kindly register and We look forward to meeting you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ramanji, for an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Ji.